Sabrina's phone screen blurred as another contraction ripped through her body. 32 weeks pregnant. The baby wasn't supposed to come for another 8 weeks. She'd been tracking every symptom, every twinge, following her doctor's orders with obsessive precision. And where was Adam right now? Working late. Again. For the 7th night this week. The pain hit harder this time, stealing her breath. She looked down. Blood. Too much blood. Spreading across her white maternity dress, pooling on the hardwood floor of their apartment. Panic clawed at her throat. She grabbed her phone with trembling, blood-slick fingers and typed frantically to the contact labeled Adam Mate. Emergency. Labor, bleeding, hospital now, please. Sabrina hit send and doubled over as another wave of agony crashed through her. She'd been carrying this baby, their baby, for 7 months. 7 months of Adam's cold shoulders, cruel comments, late nights smelling like perfume. 7 months of wondering if she'd made a terrible mistake choosing him as her mate. Her phone buzzed. That was fast. Seriously, it's 11 p.m. I have the Morrison client at 8 a.m. Call an ambulance. Sabrina blinked at the screen, her vision swimming. That was brutally dismissive, even for Adam. No concern, no fear, just annoyance. Maybe if she explained how bad it was. I'm dying. The baby, please come. She watched the 3 dots appear, disappear, appear again. You're always so dramatic about pregnancy stuff. Handle it. That's what ambulances are for. He went offline. Sabrina stared at the message, something breaking inside her chest. Not her heart, that had broken months ago. Something deeper. Her last shred of hope that he'd show up when it mattered. Another contraction, stronger. She screamed, her phone clattering from her hand. She needed help. Now, the baby wasn't moving right, too much blood. She was going to die on this floor. Her OB-GYN, Dr. Sarah Kane, emergency number. She'd programmed it months ago for exactly this scenario. Sabrina grabbed her phone, vision blurring with tears and pain. She scrolled frantically through her contacts, blood making the screen slip under her fingers. There, Dr. Kane. She tapped it. Voice message, faster than typing. Help, labor, bleeding, apartment 7C, dying, please. The phone slipped from her blood-slick hand. She collapsed against the kitchen island, sliding down to the cold tile floor. This was it. She was going to die here. Her baby was going to die, and Adam was preparing for a client meeting. The room tilted. Darkness crept in at the edges. Then crash. Her apartment door exploded inward, wood splintering, the deadbolt torn clean off. Heavy footsteps, running, multiple people. A deep voice commanding, "Where is she?" Sabrina tried to lift her head. Couldn't, too weak. The footsteps found her. A man dropped to his knees beside her, and she caught a glimpse of an expensive charcoal suit, broad shoulders, a strong jaw. Jesus Christ! His hand went to her neck, checking her pulse. She's hemorrhaging, prep for transport now. 2 people in paramedic uniforms rushed past him, medical bags already open. The man's face came into view. Late 30s, dark hair with silver at the temples, sharp features, eyes that blazed with intensity and something else, recognition. I'm Alexander Kane, he said, his voice somehow both gentle and absolutely in control. You called me, I'm here, you're going to be okay. Sabrina's brain struggled to process through the pain. Kane, she'd called. Dr. Sarah Kane, her OB-GYN, but this was a man, and he'd said Alexander. Wrong, she managed to gasp. Wrong number. Building owner, one of the paramedics said, checking her vitals. The contact says Alexander Kane, building owner. Alexander's eyes widened for just a fraction of a second. Then his jaw set with determination. Doesn't matter. What matters is I'm here and she needs a hospital. Now, he looked at the paramedics. How bad? Placental abruption, fetal distress, massive hemorrhage, we need to move. Alexander didn't hesitate. He slid his arms under Sabrina, one beneath her knees, one behind her back, and lifted her like she weighed nothing. My baby, Sabrina whispered, her hand going to her belly. Please, my baby. Alexander's eyes met hers, and she saw something fierce and protective blaze there. I'm going to save you both, I promise. He carried her toward the door, his paramedics flanking them. Sabrina's vision swam, consciousness slipping. Your mate, Alexander asked. Where is he? Working late, she breathed. Always working late. Alexander's expression went dark, dangerous, but his hold on her remained gentle. Then he's a fool. They reached the elevator. Alexander's private elevator, she realized dimly. The one that went to the penthouse. She'd lived in this building for 2 years and never once seen him, just knew he existed. The mysterious, wealthy owner who'd left his card when she signed the lease. If you ever need anything at all, contact me directly. She'd saved the number, never called it, until tonight, by accident. Stay with me, Alexander commanded as they descended. Keep breathing, keep fighting, your baby needs you to fight. Don't know you, Sabrina whispered. You don't need to, I'm here, that's what matters. The elevator doors opened to an underground garage. A black SUV waited, engine running, back doors open. More people in medical gear. Alexander placed her on a gurney. Paramedics swarmed. IV lines. Oxygen mask, monitors beeping urgently. Through it all, Alexander stayed. His hand found hers. I've got you, he said again. You're not alone. Sabrina wanted to ask why. Why was this stranger staying? Why did he care? Why did his voice make her feel safer than her own mate ever had? But darkness pulled her under as the vehicle surged forward. Her last conscious thought, I texted the wrong number. Hours later, Sabrina woke to beeping machines and fluorescent lights. Hospital, she was alive. Her hands flew to her belly, flat, empty. Panic seized her. Your daughter is in the NICU, Alexander's voice. He sat in a chair beside her bed, still in that expensive suit, now rumpled and stained with her blood. His eyes were red-rimmed with exhaustion. She's small, 3.8 pounds, but she's breathing, fighting like her mother. Tears flooded Sabrina's eyes. She's alive. Yes, thanks to you. You held on long enough to get her here. Alexander leaned forward. The doctors said another 10 minutes and you'd both be gone. 10 minutes. The time it would have taken an ambulance to arrive after she called. How long have you been here? Sabrina asked. 6 hours, through your surgery, the C-section, the complications after. He said it like it was obvious, like there was nowhere else he'd be. You don't even know me. Alexander's expression shifted to something unreadable. Actually, he paused, his eyes searching her face. Your apartment, I've been there before, haven't I? Sabrina's breath caught. You own the building, maybe during an inspection. But Alexander's eyes had gone distant, like he was reaching for a memory just out of grasp. 7 months ago, he said slowly. Did something happen, something you don't remember clearly? The room temperature seemed to drop. Because yes, 7 months ago something had happened. Something Adam had given her pills for. Something that left her with gaps in her memory and a pregnancy she hadn't planned and a mate who turned vicious overnight. How, Sabrina whispered, do you know about that? The door burst open. Adam stood there, expensive suit perfect, hair styled, phone in hand. His eyes swept the room, Sabrina in the hospital bed, Alexander in the chair, the obvious hours of vigil. What the hell is going on here? Adam's voice was ice. Who are you, and why are you in my mate's hospital room? Alexander stood, slowly, deliberately. When he drew to his full height, he had 2 inches on Adam. His presence filled the room. I'm Alexander Kane, he said, his voice deadly calm. I'm the one who saved your mate's life when you were too busy with a client meeting to answer her emergency call. Adam's face flushed. She texted you, let another alpha touch her. She texted me by mistake, Alexander said. Trying to reach her doctor, but I came in 4 minutes. Where were you? The 2 alphas faced off. The air crackled with tension. And Sabrina, lying in that hospital bed, suddenly understood. She texted the wrong number. But somehow, impossibly, she texted exactly the right one. Her phone, returned with her belongings, sat on the bedside table. She picked it up with shaking hands. Scrolled to her contacts. There it was, the catastrophic error. Right above Dr. Sarah Kane, OB-GYN, was Alexander Kane, building owner. One contact apart, one blood-slick, panicked tap of the wrong name. "Oh my God," she breathed. Adam's attention snapped to her. "What?" But Alexander's eyes were still on her, intense and knowing. And somewhere in the NICU, a premature baby girl, whose paternity was about to turn their lives upside down, fought for every breath. Because 7 months ago, something had happened. Something Adam had orchestrated. Something Alexander was beginning to remember. And the truth was about to destroy everything. Have you ever been in a moment where a stranger showed up for you when the person who should have did? Share your thoughts in the comments. The silence in the hospital room was suffocating. Adam stared at Alexander like he wanted to rip his throat out. Alexander stared back, unmoved, his posture relaxed but ready. Sabrina could feel the tension crackling between them like a live wire. "I asked you a question," Adam said, his voice dropping to something dangerous. "What are you doing in my mate's room?" "Saving her life," Alexander replied. His tone was conversational, almost bored. "While you were ignoring her emergency calls." Adam's face flushed red. "I didn't ignore anything. I was in a meeting. I came as soon as I could." 6 hours later, Alexander checked his watch. "The emergency call came at 11 p.m. It's now 5 a.m. That's quite a meeting." "How dare you?" "Gentlemen," a nurse appeared in the doorway, her expression stern. "This is a recovery room. If you can't keep your voices down, I'll have security remove both of you." Adam immediately smoothed his features, transformed into the concerned mate. "Of course, I'm sorry. I'm just worried about my partner and our baby." The nurse's expression softened. "Your daughter is stable in the NICU. You can visit in an hour when they do morning rounds." She looked at Alexander. "Are you family?" "No," Sabrina said before Alexander could answer. Her voice was hoarse, throat raw from screaming during surgery. He's the one who brought me here." The nurse nodded. "Visiting hours start at 8 a.m. for non-family. I'm afraid you'll need to leave soon, Mr. Kane, Alexander Kane." He pulled out a business card, handed it to the nurse. "I own the building where Ms. Hart lives. She called me during her emergency. I brought my private medical team." The nurse's eyebrows rose. "I see. Well, thank you for your quick response. It likely saved both their lives." She turned to Sabrina. "You need rest. Doctor will be in around 7 a.m. to check on you." She left. The moment the door closed, Adam moved to Sabrina's bedside. "Babe, God, I was so scared when the hospital finally called me. Are you okay? Is the baby okay?" His hand reached for hers. Sabrina pulled away. "Don't touch me." Adam froze. "What?" "You told me to handle it myself." Her voice shook, not with tears, with rage. "I was bleeding to death on our kitchen floor, and you told me to call an ambulance because you had a meeting." I didn't understand how serious. "I told you I was dying. I told you the baby was in distress. You said I was being dramatic." Adam glanced at Alexander, then back to her. "Can we discuss this privately?" "No." Sabrina's hands clenched in the hospital sheets. "You don't get privacy. You don't get the benefit of the doubt. You get the truth. You abandoned me when I needed you most. Again." "Again," Adam's voice sharpened. "What's that supposed to mean?" Sabrina looked at him, really looked at him. 7 months of cruelty suddenly crystallized into focus. "It means this isn't the first time." Her throat tightened, but she pushed through. 7 months of you calling me disgusting, refusing to come to appointments, staying out late, coming home smelling like perfume, making me feel like this baby was my burden alone. That's not fair. You know what's not fair? Almost dying because my mate couldn't be bothered to answer an emergency." Sabrina's voice cracked. "Do you know who held my hand during surgery? Who stayed while they cut our baby out of me? Who was here when she took her first breath?" Adam's eyes cut to Alexander, cold, calculating. Him, Sabrina finished. A stranger cared more about our daughter in 4 hours than you have in 7 months. The words hung in the air. Adam was quiet for a long moment. Then his expression shifted. The concerned mate mask slipped. Something colder took its place. Our daughter, his voice went flat. Is she, though? The room went dead silent. Sabrina's breath caught. What did you just say? The timeline, Sabrina. Adam crossed his arms, and she saw something click behind his eyes. A calculation, an assumption. You got pregnant 7 months ago. We hadn't had sex in weeks before that. Maybe months. Sabrina opened her mouth, closed it. He was right. She'd been trying to remember the exact moment, and there was nothing. Just a gap. A strange, fuzzy gap that Adam had filled in for her. Alexander shifted his weight. She saw his jaw tighten. There was the clinic, Sabrina whispered, the memory surfacing like something dragged up from deep water. When you gave me those suppressants, you said the doctor prescribed them. Did I? Adam's smile was cruel. Are you sure that's what I said? Sabrina's mind raced backward. Had he said suppressants? Or had she assumed? The bottle had been unmarked. He'd handed it to her with barely a glance. What are you implying? Alexander's voice cut through like a blade. Adam turned to him with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. I'm implying that my mate has a very convenient gap in her memory from 7 months ago, and now there's a baby who might not be mine. And you, Mr. Kane, seem awfully invested in a stranger's emergency. Alexander's expression didn't change, but Sabrina saw his hands ball into fists. Because I'm a decent human being, Alexander said. Are you? Adam stepped closer to him, his voice dropping. Or is there another reason you dropped everything to rush to her apartment? Another reason you stayed through surgery? Another reason you're still here at 5 a.m., looking at her like she's yours? The air between them became electric. Sabrina watched Alexander's face, saw something flicker there. Confusion. Then his eyes went distant, like he was reaching for something just out of reach. Your apartment, Alexander said slowly, his gaze locked on her. The layout, the blue couch by the window, the kitchen with the white subway tiles. Adam's smile widened. He'd been baiting a hook, and Alexander had just taken it. Sabrina's heart began to pound. How do you know about my apartment? She whispered. Because I've been there. Alexander's voice was distant, like he was pulling up a memory from underwater. 7 months ago, but I didn't know it was your apartment. I didn't know it was you. The machines monitoring Sabrina's vitals started beeping faster. What are you talking about? She breathed. Alexander's eyes were unfocused, seeing something else. A woman, during heat, I was told she was willing, interested, that it was arranged. His gaze snapped to Adam. You arranged it. The accusation hung in the air. Adam didn't deny it. That was when Sabrina knew it was true. What did you do? Alexander's voice was low, dangerous. Adam's smile widened. What I had to do. Alexander moved. Fast. Too fast for Sabrina to follow. He had Adam by the throat, slammed against the wall with enough force to crack the drywall. Adam gasped, clawing at Alexander's forearm. What did you do? Alexander repeated, his voice deadly quiet. Adam choked. I facilitated a transaction. You had money, I had debts. She had what? Alexander's grip tightened. Adam managed a strangled laugh. She had heat symptoms. The pills I gave her, they triggered it, just mild enough to make her receptive, willing. Everyone got what they wanted. Sabrina's vision blurred. Heat symptoms, the pills. The blank spots in her memory weren't gaps. They were erasures. You son of a bitch. Alexander released him. Adam collapsed against the wall, gasping and coughing, his hand at his throat. Alexander turned to Sabrina. His face was pale, destroyed. I didn't know, he said. I would never. He told me you wanted this, that you'd asked for me. I thought it was consensual. Sabrina couldn't speak. The room was spinning. Adam straightened his suit, still coughing. $100,000, he said hoarsely. That's what your daughter cost, Mr. Kane. Split the difference with the fake doctor, pocketed the rest. Cleanest transaction I've ever made. You drugged her. Alexander's fists clenched. You sold your own mate. I facilitated what she was going to do anyway. Adam's voice was ice. Omegas in heat are going to be with someone. I just made sure it was profitable. The words landed like a physical blow. Sabrina couldn't breathe, couldn't think. 7 months. 7 months of Adam calling her disgusting, of thinking she'd somehow lost her mind, of blaming herself for a night she couldn't remember. And he'd done it on purpose. Get out, she whispered. Adam turned to her, straightening his tie like nothing had happened. What? Get out, her scream brought nurses running from down the hallway. Get out of my room. Get away from my baby. I never want to see you again. Security appeared in the doorway. 2 large men in uniforms, already moving toward Adam. This man is harassing a patient, Alexander said calmly, his eyes never leaving Adam. Remove him, and if he comes near Ms. Hart or the NICU again, call the police. They flanked Adam, but he didn't fight. He walked toward the door with his head high, like he was leaving a business lunch, not destroying his mate's life. At the threshold, he paused. You think you're the hero here, Kane? His voice was conversational, almost friendly. You paid for her, you used her. You're just as guilty as I am. The door closed behind him. The silence that followed was different, heavier, more complicated. Sabrina stared at Alexander, this stranger, this man who'd saved her life, this man who'd been there that night 7 months ago and didn't remember until now. This man who'd paid for access to her body. Even if he didn't know. Even if Adam lied. Even if... She couldn't finish the thought. Is it true? Her voice was small, broken. Did you pay him? Alexander's face was pale. The question had been waiting. Now it was here. Yes, he said quietly. But I thought you were... He said you were willing, that you wanted this, that you'd asked for me specifically. I would never. He stopped, looked at her, and she saw the exact moment he understood. She hadn't asked for anything. She'd been drugged. I'm so sorry, he said. The words felt inadequate. They were inadequate. Sabrina closed her eyes. The memories were coming back now, hazy and fragmented at the edges. Strong hands. A gentle voice. Someone who held her like she mattered. Someone who asked if she was okay, if this was what she wanted, who moved slowly and carefully like she was precious. She'd thought it was a dream, a fever dream during the worst heat of her life. But it had been real. He had been real, and she couldn't even remember his face until now. You were there, she said quietly, not a question. In my apartment, in my bed. Yes, Alexander's voice was rough, and I'm so sorry, I didn't know. But you were there. She opened her eyes, looked at him, and now there's a baby, and she might be yours. Alexander was quiet for a long moment. He moved to her bedside slowly, carefully, like he understood that his presence was complicated now, layered with things that weren't simple. He knelt down so they were eye level. If she's mine, he said quietly, I want to be her father completely, fully. Sabrina waited for the but, for the conditions, for the caveat. It didn't come. Not because I feel guilty, he continued. Though God knows I should, not because I owe you anything, but because that little girl fighting for her life in the NICU deserves a father who shows up, a father who knows what it means to actually be there. His eyes held hers. And because, he said, if there's even a chance that I'm her father, I'm never going to let her down the way he did. Sabrina's tears finally fell. The machines beeped, steady, clinical, the only sound in the room now. Alexander stood by the window, his back to her. Sabrina could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his hands clenched and unclenched at his sides. He looked exhausted, destroyed, like something fundamental had shifted in him between one moment and the next. I need you to tell me everything, Sabrina said. Her voice was stronger now. Anger was a better fuel than shock. No versions, no explanations, just the truth. Alexander turned to face her. Okay. How did you meet Adam? A bar, about 8 months ago. Alexander moved to the chair beside her bed. the same chair he'd been sitting in when Adam arrived. He approached me, said he had a business opportunity. He was charming, said he knew exclusive people who were interested in private arrangements with men like me. Private arrangements. The phrase was sharp in her mouth. Yes, Alexander didn't look away. I was looking for that then. No strings, no complications. He said he could facilitate introductions. We discussed terms, payment. He said certain Omegas in his circle were interested in discreet encounters with alphas. Sabrina's hands curled into fists under the blanket. He specifically mentioned you, she asked. No, Alexander shook his head. He said he had several options. He'd set up meetings. We'd see if there was chemistry. If everyone was interested, we'd arrange something private. It seemed, he stopped. It seemed legitimate. People do that. Consensual encounters with payment involved. It exists. But not with drugged women. Not with drugged women, Alexander agreed quietly. Never. I would have walked away instantly if I'd known. Sabrina studied his face. She wanted to not believe him. It would be easier if he was the villain here. If there was a clear bad guy and she could direct all her rage at one person. But she'd felt his hands that night. Gentle, careful. He'd asked her multiple times if she was okay, if she wanted to keep going. She remembered fragments of that. She remembered him saying her name like a question. Why did you stay? She asked. After you left that night, why did you stay? I didn't know where you lived. Alexander's voice was quiet. He gave me an address. I showed up. There was a woman in heat. He said she was willing. We spent time together, a few hours, and then, he paused. Then he sent me a message saying to leave, said you were satisfied and didn't need to see me again, that the arrangement was complete. And you just left. Yes, the word was heavy with regret. I left. I never knew your name, never saw your face clearly because of the heat, the fever. You were beautiful and broken, and I should have asked more questions, but I didn't. I left because that was the arrangement. Sabrina turned her face away from him. Her heart was beating too fast. How much did he ask for? Alexander hesitated. That hesitation told her it was a large number. $100,000, he finally said. 50 to him. 50 split between a clinic that did the arrangement and what he called a wellness fee for the Omega. There was no clinic. I know that now. Alexander ran a hand through his hair. I should have verified it, should have insisted on meeting you again to confirm you were okay with the arrangement. I should have done a lot of things differently. Sabrina looked back at him. Why didn't you? The question hung between them. Because I'm an alpha with money, Alexander said finally. And men like me don't usually ask a lot of questions when someone offers us exactly what we want with no complications. That's the ugly truth. That's who I was. Was. Am, he corrected himself. That's who I am, that's what I am. Sabrina processed that. Did you ever think about me after that night? Alexander was quiet for a long time. Yes, he said finally. For weeks after, I thought about you, about the way you looked at me, about how real it felt even in the haze of the heat. I almost tried to find you, almost went back to the address Adam gave me. But you didn't. But I didn't. Alexander's voice was hollow. Because I told myself it was a transaction, that you'd been paid, that you'd agreed, and then enough time passed that I stopped thinking about it so hard. Convinced myself I'd been imagining the complexity, that it had just been business. He looked at her then, really looked at her. But you were never just business, he said. I think I knew that then. I definitely know it now. The machines beeped, steady, relentless. I'm pregnant with your child, Sabrina said. Her voice didn't shake, but inside she was fracturing. I don't remember consenting to that. I don't remember you except pieces, fragments. I feel like I should hate you, and I can't tell if I do or if I'm just broken. You're not broken, Alexander leaned forward. You're angry, you're hurt, you're in shock, but you're not broken. How would you know? Because you're still fighting. His eyes were intense. You fought to keep your baby. You fought in surgery. You fought in this room against Adam. You're the strongest person I've ever met, and I've only known you for 12 hours. Sabrina laughed. It came out like a sob. You don't know me at all. Then let me. Alexander's voice was steady. Let me know you, not because of the baby, not because of guilt or obligation, because I want to, because I owe you that much to actually see you, to actually ask what you want. Sabrina closed her eyes. She was so tired. Tired of fighting, tired of being strong, tired of being alone. I don't know what I want, she admitted. I don't know what's real and what's trauma bonding and what's just desperation because someone finally showed up for me. Then we figure it out together. Alexander sat back in the chair. Slowly, no pressure, no expectations, just you, me, and that baby girl down in the NICU fighting for her life. And if the DNA test says she's not yours, then I still show up. His voice was absolute. Because you need someone to show up, and that little girl needs that too. Sabrina opened her eyes. She looked at this man, this stranger who'd paid for a night with her, who'd violated her even if he didn't know it, who'd still dropped everything to save her life. Who was staying? Okay, she whispered. But not right now. I can't do this conversation right now. I can't even think about what I feel about you right now. Relief crossed Alexander's face. Okay, that's fair. But stay, Sabrina added. Not in the chair by my bed, don't touch me, just be here so I'm not alone. Alexander nodded. He moved the chair to the corner of the room, far enough away that she could breathe, close enough that she knew he was there. The sun was fully up now. Orange and gold light flooded the hospital room. Somewhere down the hallway, a baby was crying. In the NICU, her daughter was fighting for every breath. And in a hospital bed, Sabrina closed her eyes and let herself sleep, knowing that when she woke up, her life would still be complicated and messy and wrong. But at least this time, she wouldn't be alone. Sabrina woke to soft beeping and pale morning light, filtering through hospital blinds. Her body ached everywhere. The incision from the C-section throbbed with every breath, a sharp reminder that her daughter had literally been cut from her body to survive. She'd been awake for less than 24 hours in her new reality, and already everything felt surreal. Alexander was still there. He'd pulled the chair closer to her bed during the night. His head was tilted back against the wall, eyes closed, breathing deep and even. His expensive suit was wrinkled and stained with her blood, dried across the charcoal fabric like evidence of a crime. Dark stubble shadowed his jaw. He looked like a man who'd made a choice and wasn't regretting it, but whose body was demanding sleep anyway. He'd stayed, all night, just like he promised. Sabrina's chest tightened. When was the last time Adam had kept a promise? A nurse entered quietly, moving with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. She checked monitors and IV lines, glancing briefly at Alexander with an expression that suggested she'd seen this kind of vigil before. How are you feeling? The nurse asked, adjusting Sabrina's blanket. Sore, confused, terrified. Sabrina's voice was hoarse from surgery, from screaming, from crying. My baby, is she? Stable and improving. The nurse smiled, genuinely, not the practiced hospital smile. The NICU team is pleased with her progress. She's a fighter, that one. You can see her in about an hour when morning rounds finish, right after the doctor checks on you. Relief flooded through Sabrina so intensely her eyes burned. She blinked hard, not wanting to cry again. She'd cried enough in the past 12 hours to last a lifetime. Alexander stirred. His eyes opened slowly, then focused immediately on her face, checking her status like she was the most important thing in his world. You're awake. How are you feeling? His voice was rough from sleep, but his attention was sharp. Like I got hit by a truck, and then the truck parked on my abdomen. Sabrina tried to sit up, winced as the motion sent white-hot pain through her surgical site. God, that's... Don't move. Let me... Alexander was on his feet instantly, moving with surprising grace for his size. He adjusted her bed carefully, raising it slowly until she was semi-upright, cradling her with the remote control until she nodded that it was enough. Thank you. Always. He stepped back, giving her space. I should go. You probably want privacy. Let me get cleaned up. I'll come back this afternoon if you want me to, or I can. Stay, the word came out before Sabrina could stop it. Then, quieter, please, I don't want to be alone when I see her for the first time. She watched something shift in his expression. Relief, yes, but also something deeper. Like she'd just given him permission to care. Then I'll stay, he said simply. The doctor arrived 30 minutes later. Dr. Morrison, the same woman who'd performed the emergency C-section. Older, kind eyes that had seen trauma and survival in equal measure. She carried Sabrina's chart like it was important. Ms. Hart, how's your pain level? Dr. Morrison didn't wait for an answer before moving directly to examining the incision. Her touch was clinical, professional, but not unkind. Your surgeon did excellent work. The hemorrhage is controlled. You're stable. My daughter, the baby, is she? A miracle. Dr. Morrison looked up from the chart. Born at 32 weeks, 3.8 pounds. She had respiratory distress initially, but she's breathing well now with minimal support. Her UPGAR scores were better than we expected given the circumstances. The doctor's expression grew more serious. Ms. Hart, if you'd arrived 10 minutes later, we would have lost you both. Do you understand that? 10 minutes, the time an ambulance would have taken. I understand, Sabrina whispered. You can see her in a few minutes, but first we need to talk about your recovery. You'll be sore for weeks, no heavy lifting, no driving for at least 2 weeks. You'll need help at home, significant help. Home, the word hung in the air like a question mark. Sabrina knew exactly what Dr. Morrison wasn't saying. Do you have support? Does your partner support you? Can you go back to the person who abandoned you? I don't have help, Sabrina said quietly. Dr. Morrison's eyes flickered to Alexander, then back. Your partner isn't an option. The doctor's jaw tightened slightly. She'd probably seen this before. Family. My parents are in Oregon. They're elderly. I can't ask them to come. Sabrina's throat tightened. She hadn't even called them yet. Hadn't known what to say. My friends, I've lost touch with most of them over the past year. I can arrange for a home health nurse, Dr. Morrison said. But that's expensive and limited in scope. You need someone who can help with the baby, the household, your recovery. She'll stay with me. Alexander's voice cut through the awkward silence. Both women turned to stare at him. I'm sorry, who are you exactly? Dr. Morrison asked, her professional tone sharpening. Alexander Kane. I own the building where Ms. Hart lives. He moved forward slightly, careful not to invade their space. I have resources, a penthouse with full staff, a private nurse on call. She and the baby can stay there until she's recovered enough to make other arrangements. I can't, Sabrina started. You can't go home to him, Alexander said flatly, his eyes meeting hers. Not a question, a statement of fact. Not after what he did, not while you're healing and vulnerable, not while you're caring for a newborn and recovering from major abdominal surgery. He turned back to Dr. Morrison. I have references, background check clearance if needed. I'm serious about this offer. Dr. Morrison looked between them. This is highly irregular. So is paying $100,000 to arrange access to your drugged mate, Alexander said, his voice hard and matter-of-fact. But here we are. The doctor's eyes widened. Her professional mask slipped for just a moment, revealing the woman underneath, the one who'd seen enough of the world to know that sometimes the most important medical care had nothing to do with sutures and prescriptions. Ms. Hart, is this arrangement something you're comfortable with? Dr. Morrison asked carefully. Was she comfortable moving in with a stranger? A man who'd been part of Adam's scheme, even if he didn't know the full truth. A man whose very presence was a complication in an already complicated life. But he'd come when she called, stayed when Adam left, held her hand through the worst night of her life while her actual mate was sleeping. Yes, Sabrina said, I'm comfortable with it. Dr. Morrison made a note in her chart. You'll be discharged in 3 days if recovery continues well. The baby will likely need to stay in NICU for several weeks, though we'll reassess daily. I'll make sure a social worker comes by later to discuss resources and support. After the doctor left, silence filled the room. Sabrina stared at her hands. They were bandaged in some places, healing in others. She looked fragile. She felt fragile. "You don't have to do this," she finally said. "Take us in. It's not your responsibility." Alexander sat back in his chair. "Let me ask you something. If the DNA test came back and she wasn't mine, if somehow Adam was actually her biological father despite the timeline, would you go back to him?" "No." "Then she's my responsibility, because you're both getting away from him and that's not negotiable." Alexander's jaw set. "But more than that, if that baby is mine, and I think we both suspect she is, then yes, it absolutely is my responsibility, my privilege, my honor." Sabrina looked at him, really looked at him, at the exhaustion in his eyes, at the blood still staining his suit, at the man who'd chosen to stay. "I signed a lease," she said, but the objection sounded weak even to her own ears. "I can't just abandon the apartment. There are things there, my life." "Your security deposit is forfeit. Lease terminated as of this morning." Alexander's tone was matter-of-fact. "I own the building. Conflicts of interest can be resolved quickly when you're the owner. Your belongings can be packed and moved while you're here recovering. Your important documents, photos, anything you actually care about will be waiting for you when you get to the penthouse. You can't just—" "I can and did." His eyes were steady. "You're not going back there, ever. Not to that apartment, not to that building, not to him. That's non-negotiable." The certainty in his voice should have frightened her. She was moving in with a man she'd met twice. A man who'd been party to a transaction that resulted in her being drugged, even if he didn't know the details. But instead, all she felt was relief. Bone-deep relief that someone else was making decisions for her for once. That someone else was taking charge. Or maybe that was just trauma talking. "Why?" Sabrina's voice cracked. "You don't know me, not really. Don't owe me anything. You could walk away right now and no one would blame you. The DNA test will prove paternity. You could hire lawyers and negotiate custody. You could forget about both of us." Alexander was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was different, softer, more raw. 7 months ago, I spent a night with a woman I thought was willing, eager, open to me in a way that felt different from anyone else I'd been with. He was looking out the window, not at her. The whole encounter felt special, significant. I couldn't stop thinking about her afterward. Tried to find her, but Adam had arranged everything anonymously. Eventually, I convinced myself I'd imagined the importance of it, that it had just been business, which was what I'd told myself I wanted. He turned to face her. "Then last night, I got a call for help, rushed to an apartment I'd never been to before, and the moment I saw you lying on that kitchen floor, something clicked." His eyes were intense. "The layout, the scent, the way you felt in my arms. It was like my entire body recognized something my brain couldn't articulate." Sabrina's breath caught. "My wolf," Alexander said quietly, recognized his mate. "I know it sounds insane, I know it's fast, but that's what I felt when I looked at you last night, and it's what I feel right now. Not obligation, not guilt, recognition, like some part of me has been waiting for you." Before Sabrina could process his words, the door opened. A nurse wheeled in a transport chair. "Ready to see your daughter." Sabrina's heart leaped into her throat. Everything else, Alexander's confession, her confusion, the weight of her decisions, faded into background noise. "Yes, God, yes." Alexander helped her from the bed to the chair with surprising gentleness. His hands steadied her waist as pain shot through her abdomen. She bit her lip to keep from crying out. "Breathe," he said softly. "Short, shallow breaths. It'll ease in a moment." He was right. The pain peaked and receded slightly. They moved through hallways that all looked the same. Into an elevator, up 2 floors, through security doors into the NICU. The room was dim and climate-controlled, quiet except for the constant beeping of monitors and the soft whir of ventilators. Rows of isolettes lined the walls, each containing a tiny human fighting for life. Some had parents beside them. Others were alone. The nurse stopped at an isolette near the window. Sabrina looked inside and the world stopped. The baby was impossibly small. Smaller than Sabrina's memory from the operating room, or maybe that was just shock distorting her recollection. Wires and tubes everywhere. A feeding tube in her nose. Monitors taped to her tiny chest. Her skin was slightly jaundiced but already improving. Miniature fingers were curled into fists no larger than a grape. But her tiny chest rose and fell steadily, consistently, fighting. "She's beautiful," Sabrina breathed. "You can touch her through the ports if you want," the nurse said gently. "Skin contact is very good for Bobbies in NICU, helps regulate her temperature and heart rate, helps with bonding." Sabrina reached through the opening with shaking hands. Her finger, her entire hand was larger than her daughter's, stroked the baby's palm. The tiny fingers immediately grasped it, held tight. A sob broke from Sabrina's chest. Not sad, not entirely, just overwhelmed. "She knows you," Alexander said softly. He stood beside her chair, his hand on her shoulder. His presence was steady, grounding, real. "She's so small, so fragile. What if something happens? What if?" "She's a fighter," Alexander's voice was certain, "just like her mother." They stayed like that for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. Sabrina's finger in her daughter's grip, Alexander's hand on her shoulder, the machines beeping their steady rhythm. Finally, Sabrina pulled her hand back, careful not to disturb any of the monitoring equipment. She looked up at Alexander. "I want the DNA test," she said. He nodded immediately. "I'll arrange it today." "And if she's yours?" "When she's mine," Alexander corrected gently, something fierce flickering across his face. "Not if, when I already know, so do you." Sabrina looked back at the baby, at the tiny features, the dark hair that matched Alexander's, the determined set to her mouth even in sleep, the way her fingers had grasped at Sabrina's like she was holding on to life itself. "When she's yours," Sabrina agreed quietly. "What happens then?" "Then I claim her as my daughter, legally, completely, and I claim you as," he paused, choosing his words carefully, "as whatever you'll let me claim you as, partner, co-parent, friend, whatever you're comfortable with. You're asking to be in our lives, permanently. I'm asking for the chance to prove I'm worth being in your lives." Alexander's voice was fierce but controlled. "That I'm not the man who paid for access to you without asking enough questions. That I'm the man who'll break down doors to save you, who'll stay through the hardest nights, who'll be there when you wake up, every single time." Sabrina's chest ached, not from the surgery, from something deeper, from hope. Terrifying, fragile, dangerous hope. "Okay," she whispered, "prove it." Alexander's smile was small but genuine. "I will, starting right now, starting with making sure you and our daughter have everything you need." Our daughter. He'd already claimed her, already decided. And Sabrina, looking at the baby fighting for every breath, realized she'd already decided too. This stranger who'd come, when she called, was more of a father already than Adam had ever been. The door to the NICU opened. Adam walked in. He looked polished, pressed suit perfectly tailored, hair styled, like he'd slept well and showered and had a leisurely breakfast, like his night had been normal. His eyes scanned the room, cataloging each isolette until they found theirs. His expression hardened when he saw Alexander standing protectively beside Sabrina's chair. "There you are," he said, his voice carrying across the quiet room with the arrogance of a man used to people listening. "We need to talk, about custody, about that DNA test, about my rights as her legal father." Alexander's hand tightened on Sabrina's shoulder. Sabrina felt her entire body go cold. This was the moment she'd been dreading without admitting it. The moment when fantasy collided with legal reality. "My rights," Sabrina's voice came out steady, which surprised her. "You have no rights, not to her, not to me, not anymore." Adam's smile was cruel, confident, like he was the one holding all the cards. "That's not how the law works, sweetheart." He stepped closer to the isolette, his eyes on the baby. "I'm listed as the father on all the hospital paperwork. My name will be on her birth certificate, and until that DNA test proves otherwise, she's legally mine, which means I have custody rights, visitation rights, financial claims, everything." He reached toward the isolette. Alexander moved between them in one fluid motion. "Touch that isolette," Alexander said, his voice dropping to something lethal and controlled. "And I'll have security remove you." "You're threatening me," Adam laughed, a harsh sound that made nearby nurses look over. "In a hospital, in front of witnesses." "I'm not threatening you," Alexander said quietly. "I'm promising you, stay away from them, both of them, or you'll discover exactly how far I'm willing to go to protect what's mine." Adam's face flushed red. For a moment, Sabrina thought he might actually swing at Alexander. Instead, he stepped back, straightened his suit. "You think you're winning?" Adam's voice was ice. "You think you can just waltz in and steal my family? This isn't over, Kane. Not by a long shot. I have lawyers. I have rights. I have documentation proving I'm her father." "For now," Alexander said, his eyes never leaving Adam's. "I'll see you both in court." He turned and walked out of the NICU, his footsteps echoing down the hallway. Sabrina realized she'd been holding her breath. She let it out slowly. "He's right," she said quietly. "Legally, he has rights. He can fight for custody." "Then we fight harder," Alexander said simply. "We document his abandonment, his cruelty, the fact that he drugged you and orchestrated everything. We get you the best lawyer's money can buy. We prove to a judge that he's unfit." "And if we lose?" Alexander knelt beside her chair so they were eye level. "Then we fight again, in appeals court, in every court that will listen, because I meant what I said. I'm not losing you both." Sabrina looked at the baby, her daughter, their daughter, fighting for every breath in the isolette. The battle for her baby's future had just begun. But for the first time, Sabrina didn't feel like she was fighting alone. 3 days in the hospital felt like 3 years. Sabrina spent every possible moment in the NICU, sitting beside the isolette, reaching through the ports to touch her daughter's tiny hand, watching the monitors, counting breaths like a prayer. Alexander came every day, morning, afternoon, evening, brought food she actually wanted to eat instead of hospital cafeteria trays, sat quietly when she needed silence, talked when she needed distraction, downloaded books on her tablet and read aloud without judgment when she couldn't focus on anything else. Adam hadn't returned, since security escorted him out. But his presence haunted the hospital anyway, in Sabrina's anxiety, in the way she flinched whenever someone approached her room, in the nightmares about waking up back in their apartment, realizing everything was a cruel dream. On the 3rd day, during morning rounds, Dr. Morrison arrived with 2 additional people, a social worker, and a man in a police uniform with kind eyes and a detective's badge. "Ms. Hart, this is Detective Rivera. He'd like to ask you some questions about the circumstances surrounding your pregnancy," Dr. Morrison said gently. "You don't have to speak with him if you're not ready, but he can help protect your rights." Sabrina's stomach dropped. This was suddenly real in a way it hadn't been before. Criminal investigation, police involvement, documentation. "It's okay," she said, though her voice shook. "I'll talk to him." Alexander moved toward the door. "I can wait outside." "Stay," Sabrina reached for his hand. "Please." The detective pulled up a chair, settling into it like he had all the time in the world. That kind of patience made Sabrina more nervous, not less. "Ms. Hart, I know this is difficult. We can take this as slow as you need." Detective Rivera opened his notebook. 2 days ago, Mr. Kane filed a report with our department. Fraud, conspiracy, possible sexual assault facilitation. We're investigating all 3 counts. But first, I need to understand exactly what happened 7 months ago. Sabrina's hands trembled. She'd been trying not to think about that night, trying not to construct the memories from the fragmented pieces Adam had given her. "Adam, my mate, gave me pills," she began slowly. "He said they were new suppressants from my doctor. He'd been having them sent to the apartment. New formula from a specialist he knew." "Did you question the origin of these pills?" "No, I trusted him." The words tasted bitter. "He handled a lot of my medical stuff, said he wanted to help manage my health. I was naive." "What happened after you took the pills?" "Everything gets hazy." Sabrina closed her eyes, trying to access memories that felt like dreams. I felt strange, hot, like heat symptoms which made no sense because I'd just taken suppressants. The heat should have been prevented. Instead, it felt like— She paused, searching for the words. Like it was amplified, intensified. How long before the heat symptoms appeared? Maybe an hour, 2. I'm not sure. Time felt weird. Detective Rivera made notes. Did you contact anyone? Family? Friends? I called Adam, asked him what was happening. He said I was fine, that some women had adjustment periods with new medications, and that I should rest. And then I went to bed. I remember being feverish, confused, and then someone was there. Sabrina's voice dropped. In my bedroom, I remember thinking I should be scared, but I was. He was gentle, kept asking if I was okay, if I wanted him to stop. Alexander's hand tightened around hers. Did you respond to these questions? I think so. It's fuzzy, like trying to remember a dream after you wake up. But I remember feelings, safety, being cared for in a way I hadn't been in months. Sabrina opened her eyes. I remember thinking he was real, like my body knew something my drugged brain couldn't process. Detective Rivera's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his energy. He believed her. Do you remember whether you consented to sexual activity? I don't know, Sabrina's voice cracked. I don't remember explicitly consenting, but I don't remember saying no. Everything's a cloud, like someone took the night and left me with impressions instead of memories. But the next morning, I woke up alone, confused. The heat broke. The symptoms went away almost instantly, which was strange. I felt wrung out, empty, like something significant had happened, but I couldn't remember it. She paused. Then 2 weeks later, I realized I was pregnant. Detective Rivera took notes in silence for a long moment. Mr. Kane states he paid your mate $100,000 under the belief you were a willing participant in a prearranged private encounter. He claims he was told you specifically requested him. Is that consistent with what you know? Sabrina looked at Alexander. He was watching her carefully, his expression unreadable. I didn't know anything about money, had no idea Adam had arranged anything with anyone. The realization crystallized as she said it aloud. I thought I was alone, or hallucinating, or losing my mind. Then Adam started acting differently. Cruel, made comments about me being disgusting, refused to come to medical appointments, stayed out late. When did he tell you about the pregnancy? I told him, showed him the positive test. That's when the cruelty really started, like he'd been waiting for confirmation of something he already knew. Detective Rivera closed his notebook. Ms. Hart, what your mate did likely constitutes several crimes: drugging without consent, fraud, potentially procurement, which is essentially arranging sexual activity for profit, and depending on the specific drug used, there may be additional charges. What happens now? Alexander asked, his voice steady. We investigate. We'll need access to your bank records, Mr. Kane. We're looking for the transaction with your mate. Communication between the two of you. Any evidence that money changed hands. Detective Rivera turned back to Sabrina. We'll also need documentation of the pills. Containers, labels, anything you kept. I threw them away, Sabrina said. Adam must have taken them when he realized what happened. He likely did. The detective didn't sound surprised. We'll subpoena his finances. If there's a pattern, we'll find it. He stood. I'm going to be honest with you both. Prosecution depends on evidence, on the drug used, on witness testimony. If your mate had the foresight to cover his tracks, and men like this usually do, this might be difficult to prove beyond a reasonable doubt in criminal court. The bottom dropped out of Sabrina's stomach. But, Detective Rivera continued, civil court is different. Lower burden of proof. Depending on what your lawyer finds, you might have a strong case for damages, especially when it comes to custody of the child. He handed Sabrina a card. Call me if you remember anything else, and I'd recommend getting a lawyer immediately. After he left, the room felt smaller. He's going to get away with it, Sabrina said flatly. That's what he meant. The criminal case might not stick. We'll have other avenues, Alexander said, but she could hear the tension in his voice. Civil court, custody disputes. I'll hire the best lawyers in the state. And what does that cost? Doesn't matter. It matters to me. Sabrina pulled her hand away from his. I didn't sign up for this, for legal battles, for depending on your money to fight my own mate. For what? For being protected? Alexander's voice sharpened. Because that's what's happening. You're being protected. Your daughter is being protected. That's not a burden on you. That's the point. The social worker cleared her throat quietly. Ms. Hart, I'm going to leave you some resources: domestic abuse support, legal aid organizations, counseling services. She placed a folder on Sabrina's lap. You have options beyond what Mr. Kane is offering. You're not trapped. After she left, the weight of that statement settled over everything. Sabrina was discharged the next morning. Alexander arranged for a private car. She moved in a wheelchair, doctor's orders, no unnecessary strain. Every movement sent reminders of the surgery through her body. The penthouse was exactly what she'd imagined. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, modern art on the walls, a kitchen that looked like it had never been used, a bedroom suite larger than her entire previous apartment. A nursery prepared in anticipation, white furniture, soft rugs, a crib that looked expensive and impersonal. Your staff prepared it, Sabrina said quietly. I had them set up the basics, but you can change everything. Alexander stood in the doorway, not quite invading the space. Paint, furniture, theme, whatever you want for Emma. Emma, their daughter. A name they'd decided together before leaving the hospital, though the paperwork hadn't been finalized yet. A nurse arrived an hour later, private duty, sent by Alexander's doctor. She was efficient and kind, checking Sabrina's vitals and giving her pain medication. You need rest, the nurse said. Let your body heal. I'll be in the next room if you need anything. Sabrina spent the first week in a haze of medication and pain and the strange unreality of her new life. She had everything she needed: space, safety, medical support, financial security. She had none of the freedom she'd thought she wanted. On the 8th day, Sabrina received a certified letter from a law firm, Adam's Lawyers. She opened it with shaking hands. Notice of paternity and request for custody evaluation. Adam was demanding a paternity test, demanding custody evaluation, demanding full legal acknowledgement of his parental rights. The letter was dated before the DNA test results came back, before Sabrina had even been discharged from the hospital. Which meant Adam had filed these papers, knowing the baby likely wasn't his. Knowing full well what that meant, Sabrina called Alexander into the bedroom, handed him the letter without speaking. She watched his face as he read, watched the moment he understood what Adam was doing. He's suing for custody, Alexander said slowly, of a child he knows isn't his. Why would he do that? Alexander looked at her, and she saw the fear in his eyes, the realization that they might have underestimated their enemy. Because he's not interested in being a father, Alexander said quietly. He's interested in leverage. The DNA results arrived via email at 6:47 a.m. Sabrina was sitting in the penthouse kitchen, the massive, never-used kitchen that a private chef maintained, drinking coffee she couldn't taste. Alexander had already left for his office, something about a business crisis he couldn't postpone. The nurse was with Emma at the hospital. Sabrina was alone with nothing but her thoughts and the overwhelming silence of the penthouse. She opened the email from the lab. Ray, paternity test results confidential. Her hands shook as she read. Alexander Kane, biological father, 99.9% certainty. She read it 3 times, 4 times, the words didn't change. 99.9%. Not 100%, but close enough that it might as well be. Emma was his, legally, scientifically, irrevocably. Sabrina's phone rang before she could process what that meant. Detective Rivera. Ms. Hart, the lab notified us of the paternity results. I wanted you to hear this from me first, given the complications. His voice was careful, prepared. Complications. The bank records confirm a transfer from Mr. Kane's account to your mate's. $100,000, dated 7 months ago. Detective Rivera paused. The timing matches your conception perfectly. I know, he paid for. What he paid for is legally ambiguous, Miss Hart. That's the complication. Rivera's voice was steady but grim. In Mr. Kane's defense, he believed he was paying for a consensual arranged encounter. Your mate told him you were willing. There's no documentation that Mr. Kane knew about the drugging, no texts between them discussing it. But he paid for sex. He paid for what he believed was a consensual transaction. That's not illegal, though it exists in a gray area depending on jurisdiction. Rivera let that sink in. Here's the real issue. If Adam's lawyers are smart, and they are, they'll use this in the custody battle. They'll argue that Mr. Kane paying for access to you is morally equivalent to your mate arranging it. They'll say the baby shouldn't be in the care of someone who participated in the transaction, even if unknowingly. He saved our lives. I know, and that will matter to a judge, but it complicates the case. We can still prosecute Adam for fraud and drugging, but Mr. Kane's involvement, however innocent, gives the defense ammunition. After Rivera hung up, Sabrina sat in the expensive silence of the penthouse. She called Alexander immediately. I saw the results, he said before she could speak. Rivera called. He explained about the complications. Did you know this would happen? No, but I should have expected it. Alexander's voice was rough. My lawyer warned me that the financial transaction could be weaponized. I didn't listen because I was too focused on protecting you. We need to talk about this. I know, I'm coming home now. Alexander arrived 30 minutes later. He looked exhausted, defeated, like a man who just realized his best intentions might not be enough. Before you say anything, he started, I want to be clear. I knew nothing about you being drugged. I knew nothing about the fraud. I believed you were willing. That doesn't excuse anything, but it's the truth. I believe you. Sabrina surprised herself with the honesty. But that doesn't change what happened. You paid for access to my body. Even if you thought it was consensual, you still paid for it. Alexander stiffened. Yes. And now that payment could be used against you in court. Against us. Yes. So we have a real problem. Sabrina's voice was steady, but inside she was fracturing. Because I need to know, are you fighting for Emma because she's yours, or because she's become something you need to protect, because you can't separate your guilt from your love? Those aren't mutually exclusive. Alexander sat down across from her. When I saw you on your kitchen floor bleeding out, my wolf recognized you. That recognition was visceral, real, unchanged by anything Adam or Rivera or anyone else says. He met her eyes. Then I found out you were the woman from that night. And yes, guilt was part of it. Massive guilt. The guilt of knowing I'd been part of something awful, even unknowingly. But watching Emma fight for every breath in that NICU isn't guilt. That's love. Knowing her name, talking to her every day, sitting with her while she sleeps. That's not guilt. That's a father. You've known her for less than 2 weeks. And I'd die for her without hesitation. Alexander's voice was absolute. You can question my motives about you. You can doubt my feelings. But don't question what I feel for Emma. That's real. That's not complicated. Sabrina wanted to believe him. She desperately wanted to believe him. What happens now? She asked. Legally. My lawyer is calling an emergency meeting. We need to address the payment situation head-on. Probably means I need to testify about my understanding of the arrangement, about how Adam misrepresented you to me, about the fact that I would never have participated if I'd known the truth. And if the judge doesn't believe you, then we fight harder. We document every moment I spend with Emma. We get you in therapy, real, documented therapy where you process what happened. We build a case that even if my initial involvement was morally questionable, I'm a better parent than Adam could ever be. Alexander leaned forward. And Sabrina, I'm also going to step back. What? I'm going to step back, not from Emma, never from Emma, but from you, from the penthouse arrangement, from playing house. His eyes were serious. You need space to heal. to decide who you are outside of Adam and outside of depending on me. So here's what we're going to do instead. He pulled out his phone, showed her a screen. This is a small house in a quiet neighborhood. Nothing flashy, your own space, fully furnished. I'll cover the rent for 1 year. Maria, my housekeeper, will come 3 days a week to help with cleaning and cooking while you recover. But otherwise, it's yours. You get to rebuild your life on your terms. You're kicking us out. No, I'm giving you the option to stay or to go. That's what you asked for, wasn't it? Choice. Sabrina stared at the phone, at the modest house with a small yard, at the picture of normalcy. Emma still needs to be in NICU. She won't be discharged for weeks. I know, so here's my proposal. You stay here for now, close to the hospital. But we establish boundaries, clear boundaries. I stay in my wing, you stay in yours. We co-parent Emma together, but we don't pretend to be a couple. We don't play house. We rebuild this relationship slowly, honestly, without the pressure of living in this penthouse pretending everything is fine. And when Emma comes home from NICU, then we transition to the house. She gets a normal home. You get space and independence. I'm her father, but I'm not her mother. I'm not running your life. Alexander's voice was steady. I'll be there for both of you, but I'll be there as a partner, not a savior. That's the only way this works. Sabrina's eyes burned. What if I decide I don't want you in our lives at all? Then I fight for custody, for visitation, for my legal rights as her father. He said it simply. But I'll also respect your choice to build a life separate from me. I'll pay support. I'll be present. But I won't force myself into your life if you don't want me there. That seems fair. It's not fair, it's painful, but it's honest. They sat in silence for a long moment. I need to see Emma, Sabrina finally said. Then let's go. At the hospital, they found the NICU in controlled chaos. Emma was seizing. Not severe, small, trembling movements, but enough that alarms were sounding. The NICU team rushed in. Sabrina was ushered back. Alexander moved to comfort her, then caught himself and stopped. It's okay, Sabrina said, reaching for his hand. I need you right now. He took her hand, held it like she was his lifeline. What's happening? Sabrina demanded of the nearest nurse. Possible infection. We're running tests now. Don't panic. Preemies sometimes have seizures without it being serious, but we need to monitor her closely. Is she in pain? No, Bobbies at this age don't process pain the way we do, but we're starting her on precautionary antibiotics. The seizure stopped. Emma went still. Her tiny chest rose and fell. Alexander squeezed Sabrina's hand. She's going to be okay, he said, but it sounded like a prayer. You don't know that. No, I don't, but I believe it. Dr. Morrison appeared, her expression grave. We need to admit Emma to PICU as a precaution. We suspect a minor infection, but with preemies, we have to take every precaution. She looked between them. One of you can stay with her. The other needs to rest. Sabrina and Alexander looked at each other. You rest, Alexander said. I'll stay with Emma. You've been awake for 30 hours. I can't. You have to. His voice was firm but kind. You're still healing. Your body needs rest. I'll call you if anything changes. But right now, the best thing you can do for Emma is take care of yourself. Sabrina wanted to argue, but exhaustion was making the room spin. Okay, she whispered. Alexander drove her back to the penthouse, tucked her into the guest room like she was precious, closed the curtains against the afternoon light. Sleep, he said. I've got Emma, rest. Sabrina fell asleep to the sound of his voice on the phone, calling lawyers and doctors and making arrangements. When she woke 6 hours later, her phone had 17 missed calls. She called Alexander back immediately. She's okay, he said before she could panic. False alarm, minor bacterial infection from the NICU equipment, not sepsis. They started her on antibiotics and she's responding well. She's sleeping right now. Relief flooded through Sabrina, so intensely she cried. I'm coming back to the hospital, she said. I'll pick you up. That night, Sabrina sat beside Emma's crib in the PICU. Her daughter looked impossibly small hooked up to monitors, but she was breathing, fighting, living. Alexander sat in the chair across from her, not invading her space, just present. "Thank you," Sabrina said quietly. "For what?" "For staying, for being here, for not pretending this is easy." Alexander looked at Emma, at the monitors tracking her heartbeat, at the baby girl who'd brought them together in the most complicated way possible. "We're going to figure this out," he said. "Not because it's easy, but because she's worth it." Sabrina looked at him, crossed the distance between them. And for the first time since this nightmare began, she thought maybe he was right. Adam was arrested on a Tuesday morning. Sabrina learned about it from Detective Rivera's phone call while she was in the NICU changing Emma's diaper. The baby was alert, responsive. Her tiny fingers grasped Sabrina's pinky with surprising strength. "We picked him up at his office," Rivera said. "Charged with fraud, conspiracy, and administering controlled substances without consent. He's being held pending arraignment." "How long until the hearing?" Sabrina's voice was steadier than she felt. 3 weeks. Prosecutor needs time to build the case. But Ms. Hart, he's asking for his own lawyer now. That suggests he's planning to fight this hard. After she hung up, Sabrina stared at Emma. Her daughter was unaware that the man who'd claimed to be her father for 7 months was now facing felony charges. Unaware that her entire existence was caught in a legal battle. Emma just knew she was hungry, and loved, and safe. For now. The custody hearing happened on a Wednesday morning in family court. The courtroom was smaller than Sabrina expected, more intimate, more brutal. She sat between Alexander and Patricia Chen, the lawyer he'd hired. Emma wasn't there. Judges rarely brought infants into these proceedings. The baby remained in NICU, unaware that her legal fate was being decided. Adam arrived in civilian clothes, but something about his demeanor had changed. He moved like a caged animal, twitchy, angry. His eyes scanned the courtroom like he was cataloging exits. When he saw Sabrina, his expression twisted. Not with sadness, not with remorse, with resentment. The judge entered. A middle-aged woman with sharp eyes and the bearing of someone who'd seen every variation of human cruelty. "This is a custody dispute regarding a minor born prematurely due to placental abruption," the judge began, reviewing her notes. "DNA evidence establishes that the biological father is Alexander Kane, not the respondent, Adam Hart. However, Mr. Hart was listed as the presumed father on the birth certificate at the time of the infant's birth." Adam's lawyer stood. "Your Honor, my client was the lawful mate at the time of conception. Regardless of biological parentage, he should have visitation rights and possible custody consideration." Patricia was on her feet immediately. "Your Honor, the conception occurred through fraudulent means orchestrated by Mr. Hart himself. He administered controlled substances to Ms. Hart without her knowledge or consent. He arranged her sexual contact with Mr. Kane for financial profit. He then used the resulting pregnancy as a weapon to psychologically abuse Ms. Hart for 7 months." "Those are serious allegations," the judge said. "What documentation supports this?" Patricia presented the evidence methodically. Bank records showing the $100,000 transfer. Text messages between Adam and the fake doctor discussing the drug administration. Medical records from Sabrina's emergency documenting the placental abruption and premature labor. Testimony from the NICU nurses about Emma's condition and prognosis. "Mr. Hart," the judge said, looking directly at him, "what do you say to these allegations?" Adam leaned toward his lawyer, who whispered something to him. Then he stood. "I made a financial arrangement with someone willing," Adam said carefully. "I wasn't aware of any drug use. That's a separate matter entirely." "But you administered the drugs." The judge checked her notes. "According to Detective Rivera's report, you were the one who gave Ms. Hart these new suppressants. Did you or did you not give her pills that were not prescribed by her physician?" Adam's jaw tightened. His lawyer touched his arm, warning. "Yes, but she consented to taking them." "Did she consent, after being informed what they actually contained?" Silence. Mr. Hart, did you tell Ms. Hart that these pills would trigger a heat cycle? No, but... That's a yes to administering controlled substances without informed consent. That's a felony. The judge set down her notes. Let's address the more immediate issue, which is custody. Mr. Hart, do you want custody of this child? Adam hesitated. That hesitation was significant. Your Honor, his lawyer started, my client has. I asked Mr. Hart, not you. Adam's eyes glittered with something Sabrina recognized. Calculation. He was running numbers, assessing options. No, he finally said. I don't want custody, but I should have visitation rights. I was her father for 7 months. The courtroom went quiet. You were her presumed father for 7 months, the judge corrected. During which time you called her mother disgusting, refused to attend medical appointments, and abandoned her during a life-threatening emergency. That's not fatherhood. That's abuse. She's not even my biological child. So now you don't want to claim her. I'm saying I shouldn't be held responsible for her. She's not my problem. Sabrina felt Alexander's hand find hers under the table, a steadying presence. The judge looked at Adam for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was ice. You orchestrated a scheme to profit from your mate's reproductive biology. You drugged her. You sold access to her body. Then you abused her for the resulting pregnancy. And now, having discovered she's biologically another man's child, you want to abandon her without even the decency of pretending to care. I'm just being honest, Your Honor. You're being predatory. The judge's voice didn't rise, which made it worse. Based on all available evidence, I'm awarding full legal custody to Ms. Hart with Alexander Kane established as the legal father. Mr. Hart's name will be removed from the birth certificate. He has no visitation rights, no contact rights, no parental authority whatsoever. Adam stood abruptly. That's bullshit. I have rights. You have none, not where this child is concerned. You surrendered those rights the moment you decided she was not your problem. The judge banged her gavel. Furthermore, based on the fraud and drug administration charges, I'm issuing a permanent restraining order. You are not to come within 1,000 feet of Ms. Hart or the minor. Any violation will result in immediate arrest. Court adjourned. The judge left. The bailiff moved toward Adam. And instead of fighting, Adam did something worse. He smiled. At Sabrina, a smile full of venom and promise. This isn't over, he said quietly, his voice reaching her clearly. I'm going to take everything from you, your new life, your fancy penthouse, your new alpha. You'll regret the day you made me look like a fool. Security escorted him out before he could say more. But the threat hung in the air like poison gas. Back at the hospital, Emma was sleeping. Sabrina stood over her daughter's isolette. Emma was bigger now, stronger. The doctors said she could come home next week if she continued improving. Home, to do what? Continue playing house with Alexander. Pretend everything was fine because a judge said so. You okay? Alexander appeared beside her. He'd learned to move quietly, to give her space while remaining present. He meant that, you know. He's going to try to hurt us. I know. How are you so calm about this? Alexander was quiet for a moment. Because I've faced worse. Because I have resources he doesn't. Because I'm not going to let him win. By doing what? Hearing more security. Putting a tracking device on me. That's not protection, Alexander. That's just a different cage. You're right. His admission surprised her. I don't have a perfect answer to this, but I know that Adam Hart is a coward. He looks dangerous when his victim is vulnerable, but he'll fold when he faces real consequences. He's facing prison time. He's got nothing to lose. He's got his reputation, his career, his freedom. If he violates the restraining order, he goes straight to prison with no bail. He knows that. Whatever anger he's feeling right now will eventually be tempered by self-preservation. Sabrina wanted to believe him. Emma comes home next week, she said, changing the subject. Yes. And then what? We're just a family, all 3 of us living in your penthouse like nothing's wrong. We could move to that house I showed you. give you more independence. Or I could take Emma and go to Oregon, stay with my parents, let them help me rebuild. Alexander's expression didn't change, but she felt him tense beside her. Would you be happy there? I don't know if I can be happy anywhere right now. Then don't decide yet. Let yourself heal. Let Emma get stronger. Let time pass. The answers will be clearer. What if the answer is that I don't want you in our lives? Then I respect that, and I still show up for Emma because she's my daughter, but I give you the space you need. The generosity of it felt suspicious to Sabrina. Everything felt suspicious now. Every kind gesture came with the potential for future cruelty. Every promise was a trap. That was what Adam had done to her, taken her ability to trust freely. I'm tired, she said. I want to go back to the penthouse and sleep. Okay, let's go. At the penthouse, Sabrina took her medication. Painkillers, antibiotics, a low-dose antidepressant her doctor had prescribed, and collapsed into the guest room bed. She slept for 12 hours. When she woke, Alexander had left for the office. There was a note on her nightstand. Had to handle a business crisis. Back by evening. Maria left lunch in the kitchen. The night nurse will be here by 5 p.m. Call if you need anything. They. Sabrina crumpled the note. This was how it would work. Alexander providing. Alexander managing. Alexander in control even when he claimed to be stepping back. She showered, dressed, moved slowly through the penthouse, her incision still tender but healing. On his desk in the office he'd said was his but she was invited to use, she found a file. Custody and security assessment. She opened it despite knowing she shouldn't. The file contained detailed information about Adam's current mental state, therapy recommendations, risk assessments, a full background investigation on his family, his debt history, his affairs, plural, that he'd hidden from her. And on the last page, a security upgrade proposal, motion sensors in the windows, 24-hour security cameras, panic buttons in every room. Sabrina felt sick. Alexander wasn't protecting her from Adam. He was building a prison, making her safe by making her a prisoner. When he came home that evening, she confronted him immediately. You opened my file. He didn't sound angry, just resigned. You were building a prison. I was building security. Same thing, Sabrina's voice shook. Cameras in every room, panic buttons. This is exactly what Adam did. This is control wrapped in the language of protection. It's not the same. Isn't it? You decide what I need. You arrange my life. You control where I live, who I see. You're just nicer about it than Adam was. Alexander sat down heavily. You're right, I overstepped. His quick agreement angered her more than an argument would have. Why did you open that file? Because I was scared. Because Adam made threats. Because I wanted to protect you and the only way I knew how was through control. He met her eyes. I was doing to you what he did, and I hate myself for it. Don't apologize, just don't do it again. I will, though, probably. When I'm scared or overwhelmed, my instinct is to control. Alexander's honesty was brutal. That's something I need to work on, something I'm going to work on. With therapy. Yes, I've already called someone. First appointment is tomorrow. Sabrina wanted to rage, wanted to tell him that therapy doesn't fix fundamental damage, that good intentions don't erase harm. Instead, she just went to bed. And for the first time since arriving at the penthouse, she locked her bedroom door. Emma came home on a Thursday. Sabrina sat in the back of Alexander's car, the infant car seat secured beside her. Emma was so small the straps barely fit even on the tightest setting. 5 pounds now, still technically preemie-sized but healthy. Strong. A fighter, the nurses had used that word so many times it had become Emma's identity. She's really coming home, Sabrina whispered, not quite believing it. Alexander glanced in the rearview mirror. He'd been doing this more often, checking on her, not asking if she was okay, but giving her space to articulate her own needs. She really is. The penthouse nursery had been completed weeks ago. Pale yellow walls, Sabrina's choice, not Alexander. White furniture, practical, not pretentious. Every safety item the NICU nurses had recommended. A night nurse would stay for the first week, though Alexander had already insisted he wanted to be the one handling most of the care. "You don't have to take time off work," Sabrina had said. "I want to," he'd replied. "This matters more." It was a small thing, but it was different from how he'd managed her recovery. This time, she was asking permission instead of being told what was happening. The penthouse felt different now, less like a stage set and more like a home. Sabrina's books were on the shelves alongside Alexander's, her ugly throw blanket from college draped over the sofa next to his designer furniture, evidence that two people with different lives were learning to merge them. Maria, the housekeeper, had prepared meals for the week, actual healthy food Sabrina could eat, not fancy catering. She learned Sabrina's preferences by asking, not assuming. Small things, but they were building something. Emma woke every 2 hours that first night, feeding, changing, soothing. The night nurse assisted, but Sabrina refused sleep. She couldn't let her guard down, not yet. The trauma of the emergency still lived in her nervous system. At 3 a.m., during Emma's fourth feeding, her eyes started to close mid-suck. Alexander appeared in the nursery doorway with 2 cups of tea. "You're going to fall asleep holding her." "I can't sleep. What if..." "What if what?" "The monitor stops working. She forgets how to breathe. The trauma from your emergency is making catastrophe feel like a guarantee." Alexander's voice was gentle but direct. "I've been in therapy for 6 months now. My therapist helped me understand that I use control to manage fear. You're doing the same thing right now, using vigilance to feel safe." It was true, painfully true. "I can't turn my brain off," Sabrina admitted. "Then let me turn it off for you. Just for a few hours. Sleep in our room. I'll monitor Emma. The nurse will be here. Nothing bad will happen." Sabrina wanted to argue. The need to protect Emma was primal. Instead, she handed her daughter over, watched Alexander settle into the rocking chair with surprising competence. He'd been attending parenting classes, reading books, preparing for this like it mattered more than any business deal ever could. "Go," he said. "I'll wake you if anything changes." Sabrina woke 6 hours later. Panic spiked. Why hadn't Emma woken for feeding? Until she realized Alexander had bottle-fed her. Expressed breast milk from the storage bottles Sabrina had pumped. He was in the kitchen when she found him. Emma in a bouncer beside him while he made breakfast. "She's been perfect," he said before Sabrina could ask. "Fed at 4 a.m. and 6 a.m., changed both times, has been cooing at the kitchen light for the last 20 minutes. Your daughter has opinions about decor." The lightness in his voice helped something in Sabrina's chest unclench. But the first week was still hard. Not because Emma was difficult. Emma was easy, a good sleeper, an enthusiastic eater, content to exist in the world. The difficulty was Sabrina learning to exist alongside someone else, learning to share parenting, learning that asking for help wasn't weakness. By day 8, Detective Rivera called with trial information. "Adam's trial date is set, 4 months from now. The prosecutor wants to meet with you. We need your testimony prepared." After the call, Sabrina sat in the nursery. Emma was napping. The monitor showed steady breathing. Alexander found her there. He didn't immediately ask what was wrong. He'd learned to wait. "Adam's trial is happening. In 4 months, I have to testify." She watched his shoulders tense. "You don't have to do anything you're not ready for." "I want to," Sabrina's voice was firm. "I want him punished, not for me, for Emma, for every other woman he might have hurt." "Okay, then we prepare together. I'll be there every day." "Alexander, you don't have to." "I know I don't have to. I want to." He sat beside her. "That's the difference now. I'm choosing to be here, not because I feel obligated, because I want to support you." It was a distinction that mattered. Sabrina's parents arrived 2 weeks after Emma came home. Her father took in the penthouse and said nothing about the luxury. Instead, he asked to hold Emma, held her like she was precious, the most important thing in the room. Her mother pulled Sabrina into the kitchen while the men got acquainted. "How are you really doing?" her mother asked. "Surviving, healing, learning to trust again." "Do you love him?" The question didn't surprise Sabrina. Her mother never danced around the hard stuff. "I think so. Yes. I don't know if it's real or if it's Stockholm Syndrome or trauma bonding or if it's real love that started in a horrible circumstance but grew into something genuine." Her mother took her hands. "Sabrina, you've been through something terrible. That's not going to change, but I watch Alexander with you, with Emma, and I see a man trying, genuinely trying. That's more than most people get. What if he disappoints me?" "Then he does, and you survive. You're good at surviving." Her mother smiled sadly. "But you're also good at living. Don't spend so much time protecting yourself that you forget how to actually be alive." 1 month after Emma came home, Sabrina woke to crying. Not Emma's cry, deeper, the sound of a grown man trying to muffle emotion. She rushed to the nursery. Alexander sat in the rocking chair, Emma against his chest, tears streaming down his face. "What's wrong? Is Emma okay?" The panic rose immediately. "She's perfect," she smiled. His voice cracked. "At me, her first real smile, and He looked at Emma with such fierce love it broke something open in Sabrina's chest. "I love her so much. How is that possible? I've known her less than 6 weeks." Sabrina understood that kind of love, had felt it the moment she saw Emma's face. "It's completely normal," she said softly. He looked at Sabrina then, really looked at her. "And you," he asked, "how do you feel about me?" The question deserved honesty. "I'm falling in love with you," Sabrina admitted. "Against my better judgment and survival instincts, but it's happening. And it terrifies me because what if you change? What if the good version of you is just performance?" "I could change. People do. I'm not perfect." Alexander set Emma in her crib carefully, took Sabrina's hands. "But I can promise you I'm aware of my patterns now. I know I use control to manage fear. I know I'm trying to prove myself through actions instead of words. And I know that if I ever start sliding back into those old patterns, I'll catch myself, because you matter too much not to." He kissed her then, careful, asking permission with every movement. Sabrina kissed back, let herself feel the possibility of it, let herself believe maybe, just maybe, this could be real. 3 months later, Adam's trial ended. Sabrina testified for 2 days, faced Adam across the courtroom, told her story without breaking, told it because Emma deserved a mother who spoke truth even when it hurt. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Guilty on all counts: fraud, drugging with intent, procurement, 8 years in prison. Adam looked at her as he was led away. The hatred in his eyes was absolute. But Sabrina felt nothing except relief. 6 months after Emma came home, Sabrina moved from the guest room to Alexander's room. It was a practical decision at first. The night feedings were easier if they shared a space. Emma would wake, and one of them could handle it without navigating hallways. But it became more than practical. One morning, Sabrina woke to find Alexander asleep beside her, Emma in the bassinet between them, sunlight coming through the windows, the ordinary miracle of a family sleeping peacefully together. She realized in that moment she was happy. Actually, genuinely happy, not content with survival, not grateful for safety, happy. 1 year after the emergency, they got married. Not a big event, just family, judge at City Hall, Sabrina's parents, Alexander's best friend, Emma as flower girl in a tiny white dress, more interested in eating the flowers than carrying them. Sabrina wore a simple white dress, no veil, no pretense, just herself. Alexander's vows were long. He talked about the moment he crashed through her door, about the woman he saw fighting for her life, about Emma's first smile, about learning to be better through therapy and intention and love. "I don't deserve you," he said, "but I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving I'm worthy of trying." Sabrina's vows were shorter. "You showed up when I needed you most. You stayed when leaving would have been easier. You loved me and Emma when we were broken. You're the partner I didn't know I needed. I'm choosing you, today and always." Emma clapped her tiny hands. 2 years after the mistaken text, Sabrina sat in the nursery. Emma was 3 now, healthy, happy, talking constantly, calling Alexander Dada and melting his heart daily. The penthouse had transformed gradually into something genuinely lived in. Emma's toys everywhere. Sabrina's art supplies on one table. Alexander's work documents on another. A space that belonged to all of them. Sabrina's phone buzzed. "Alexander, client meeting running late. Won't be home until 6. Is that okay?" She smiled. He still asked. After 3 years of marriage, 2 years of fatherhood, he still checked in instead of just arranging her life. "Sabrina, we're fine. Take your time. Emma and I are making dinner." "Alexander, my 2 favorite people making food. Best day ever." She looked at Emma. Her daughter was drawing at the small table, purple scribbles that meant something to her even if nobody else could read it. Sabrina thought about the night that started all of this. The blood, the panic, the wrong number. How many times had she cursed that mistake? How many nights had she replayed that text, wishing she looked more carefully? Now she looked at Emma's face, at the dark eyes that belonged to Alexander, at the strength in her tiny hands. And she understood. Sometimes the worst moments lead to the best miracles. Sometimes breaking down a door is exactly what love looks like. Sometimes the wrong number is fate correcting course. Emma looked up from her drawing, smiled at her mother. "Mama, I home soon." "Soon, baby, soon." And Sabrina waited for the man who'd saved her, who stayed, who learned to love her not as a project but as a person, who'd chosen her every single day for 3 years. If this story stayed with you, subscribe for more emotional stories like this. Thank you for being here.